Hey everyone, sorry about the cliffhanger. There's been a few interesting developments. I'm going to start off where I left things last time. Andy Trench, like I said, it stank and was vomit-inducing. Jordan gave me no time to react though. With an iron grip on my wrist, he led me back to the call center. He didn't let go at the front door. We marched right through the lobby, past the phone booths and to the bathrooms. I winced at my reflection. I looked like a cosplayer for a horror movie. Only this wasn't a movie. It was my life. I sat on the countertop and rested my head in my hands. I was so tired. This isn't how I thought my night would go. Jordan waited for the water to get warm before soaking a towel in the sink. I sat there, too numb to react as he washed Andy's blood off of me. He even took the time to wash it out of my hair. I wasn't out of it enough to change my shirt with him there. I went to the lobby for that. Then I sat on the floor. It was painful in the beginning. It was like the tears had to break their way out of me. Once the first one fell, the rest came rushing after. My whole body convulsed with sobs. I cried until I couldn't cry anymore. This job is so fucked. I put myself back together. I brushed my hair and grabbed a snack. My clothes were clean enough. The sticky feeling of blood-covered skin was gone. It was time to get back to work. Jordan was at his desk. Perfect. I walked up and slammed both of my hands down on the cheap wood. I tried not to flinch as the impact sent a shock up my arms. Okay, Jordan, what's with the book of names? And who are the Andys you've been killing? Jordan glanced up from the western he was reading. It is a book with the names of people living within range of the radio station. The Andys are clearly clones, fungi, or cyborgs. He lifted the book again, as if the conversation was over. I pulled the book down and glared at him. What is the significance of the names? Jordan pulled the book away from me. They are the names of people within range of the radio station. He leaned back in his chair, as if moving the book a foot farther back would deter me. As soon as he tried to resume his reading, I snatched the book away. You can have this back when you give me some satisfactory answers. I crossed my arms smugly. Jordan leaned down and with a key he seemingly produced from thin air, he unlocked one of the drawers of his desk. Finally, some progress. Jordan then pulled an exact copy of the book I had in my hand out of the drawer. With a hint of a smirk, he leaned back and began reading again. I stormed around to the other side of the desk and plunged my hand into the still open drawer. Jordan grabbed my bicep. Don't, I shouted, catching both of us by surprise. But it worked. He let go of me. Jordan waved his hand as if to say, go ahead. He put his nose right back into that stupid western. I pulled the leather book of names and a folder out of the drawer. I stomped over to my desk and sat. I had looked at the book previously. While I suspected there was more to it than Jordan was letting on, I was more curious about the folder. It was an ordinary off-white folder like you would find in a filing cabinet. I glanced over at Jordan. He appeared to be paying me no mind. Inside the folder was a number of envelopes, each with the name handwritten across the front. Unlike the ones in the book, the names here meant something to me. They weren't the names of people I knew. People like Andy, Edwin, or Nick, Chuck, myself, what looked to be everyone at Greenbrier FD, PD, and the local politicians. The envelope on top was still crisp. It had Allison freshly scrawled across it. I opened it. The contents were confusing. There was a page with basic information. Name, Allison Studebaker. Age, unknown. Origin, unknown. Assessment, she calls herself Allison Studebaker, claims to be 19 years old. Stands at roughly 5'11", estimated weight of 180 pounds, red hair, black eyes. Observation shows a lack of familiarity with normal objects and pop culture references. Continued observation needed to determine threat level. I looked up from the page. The envelope also contained more than a few photos of Allison. They seemed strangely consensual. She appeared to be posing in all of them. I couldn't help but notice the envelope with my name on it. I jumped and nearly screamed when a hand grabbed my shoulder. I turned to see Jordan standing next to me. The way he would cross a room without making a sound was so creepy. "You won't find what you're looking for in there," he said before pulling up a chair and sitting in it. "I wasn't sure about you in the beginning. The way you took all the weird happenings in this place in stride was suspicious. I get it though. You grew up here and weird stuff is just part of life." He seemed to be lost in his own thoughts for a moment. "I don't think I can fully satisfy your curiosity, but I believe you deserve to know as much as I do, especially now that you are so deeply involved. Just know that you can't unlearn things. If you keep pursuing this path, your life will change." It didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a genuine warning. I had to think for a minute. If I let this go, would my life calm down? Possibly, but I know myself well enough to know that I could never be okay with just hiding. I needed some closure. I needed the information Jordan had to offer. I nodded my head. "Go on. I need to know." Jordan sighed. "I shouldn't have hoped for anything else. Grab a coffee for each of us. It's going to be a long night." Jordan's human-like behavior was an unexpected but welcome surprise. I was finally going to get some answers. The coffee pot in the lobby was already full. Grabbing 2 mugs, I filled them and placed them in the microwave. As I watched the timer count down, something caught my attention. I walked closer to the sink. It sounded like air was coming up from the drain. A rank stench hit my nose. I recoiled just as a warm burp of disgusting air oozed out of the drain. The smell filled the lobby almost instantly. I was so busy repressing a gag, I almost missed the whispering. I gagged hard. Hot vomit was trying to force its way out. I stubbornly held it in. The whispering grew louder. It held a vicious and feral tone. I could physically feel the hunger in the voice as it gurgled up from the drain. "You took from us, now we will take you." My hands shook violently. My eyes felt as if they were going to come out of my head. The whole room was thick with the putrid air. The scent was thick enough to tint the lights red. I was on the ground. I had to get up. I had to get out. I clawed my way across the concrete floor. The coolness of the ground beneath me brought a small amount of clarity to my brain. I found a wall and pulled myself up. Everything was spinning. I lost the battle with my stomach and spewed my lunch across the floor. There was a bang at the door, the one leading outside. Another bang. Something was trying to get in. I tried to cry out for Jordan. All I achieved was choking on the puke still in my mouth. Despite my body feeling weak and my head spinning, I managed to make a run for the door leading to the call center. I hit the steel hard. Pain shot through my wrist. The door opened, and I fell through the opening. A hand grabbed the back of my shirt and lifted me away from the doorway. Jordan was locking the doors as something on the other side was bashing against them. He managed to slip the locks into place. I breathed a sigh of relief. Those new doors were quite robust. With the air free from that horrid odor, I found myself feeling a lot better almost instantly. I got to my feet and followed Jordan to his office. He turned the monitor enough for me to be able to see it. The lobby was filled with a repulsive, writhing mass of sweat-covered flesh. A few looked like Andy, but most were corrupted copies of a copy. Limbs were the wrong length, some had too many fingers, while others had too few. I didn't hesitate for a second. I pressed the SOS button. Jordan removed his shotgun from where it had been concealed. He placed 2 shells on his desk while loading the rest into the firearm. He noticed my questioning look. It's just in case. There's no other escape. Some things are worse than death. I was repulsed at the very thought, but Jordan was already on the move. Check the bathroom. I'm going to barricade the door. I nodded, then rushed across the room. I opened the bathroom door to find the window smashed. A head protruded into the room, surrounded by a dozen arms, each jostling for room. The head was lifeless, its eyes bulging and tongue rolling about freely. These things had crushed one of their own in an attempt to gain entry. It was clear nothing short of death would stop them. The window's small size was our saving grace. The concrete walls were robust enough that even these ghouls couldn't break through. The same couldn't be said for the main door. I jerked around as Jordan's gun boomed. A corner of the main door had come free of the frame and was bowing in under the weight of the Andes. Jordan shot again and then again. Each time he fired, there would be a brief moment where the door would nearly return to its place, only to be crashed into once again. It was a losing battle. The gap was growing with each moment. The cacophony of gunshots left my ears ringing. There was a look of desperation on Jordan's face. He was scared. It was a sobering realization. Through all the weird shit we had seen, Jordan had never looked the last bit afraid. The gun went off 3 more times. Jordan looked at the empty chamber, then up to me. Grab those shells off my desk. I did, as he asked. Jordan had his back against the door in an attempt to brace it. He loaded our remaining shots. Kylie. He seemed to struggle with finding the right words. I'm sorry. I won't let them take me back. I'm sorry there isn't much I can do for you. I won't make your decision for you, but I suggest you follow my lead. Jordan, the police are on their way. We just have to hold the door. We'll be okay. He had a tired smile on his face. For your sake, I hope so. But I won't risk it. Jordan placed his chin over the barrel of the shotgun. It's okay to close your eyes, Kylie. The realization of what he planned on doing hit me. I lunged forward. Jordan, don't. He pulled the trigger. A loud click rang out. My heart nearly stopped. The gun hadn't fired. Annoyed, Jordan inspected the shotgun. He ejected the shell and chambered the next one. While he did so, he leaned forward. It was only for a moment. Jordan instantly realized his mistake, but it was too late. The door was forced open enough for 3 arms to reach into the room. They grabbed Jordan. Dirty pink fingers resembling pig flesh dug into Jordan. He was lifted from the ground. The shotgun clattered to the floor. Jordan elbowed and kicked, but the arms were too strong. They lifted him off his feet. Before I could react, His head disappeared through the hole. He screamed out, "Shoot, Kylie, shoot!" I was frozen. The gun lay just a few feet away, yet I couldn't grab it. Jordan's desperation increased as his shoulders wedged against the door frame. I reached forward to grab his leg to try and pull him back, but it was too late. With a wet crack, the rest of him conformed to the hole and disappeared. The door buckled wildly as the bodies on the other side renewed their attack. I backed away. I didn't want to risk getting close enough to grab the gun, not now that the gap was large enough for those things to get their heads through. In a terrifying spectacle of contortion, one of the Andes started to squeeze into the room. I ran for the bathroom, my last stand. Careful to avoid the arm-filled window, I slammed the heavy metal door shut. I didn't know how long it would hold. I just prayed it would be long enough. Soon, I could hear them in the other room. The shattering of glass and slapping of bare feet on concrete rang out. I wished they made more noise, even if it was zombie-like groans. Anything would be better than the silent way they attacked, the only sound being their bodies against the surrounding environment. Just as I feared, they soon began to assault the bathroom door. It was thick and well built, but I knew it wouldn't hold forever. I sat with my back to it. I faced the open window and the lifeless head still trapped within the frame. I could feel the door bend and flex. It won't be long now. I just hoped it wouldn't hurt too badly. A rapid succession of pops from outside caught my attention. More pops followed by shouts. Someone was out there. I screamed out, "I'm in here, help me, please." They no longer beat against the door. Something else had caught their attention. I screamed as a bullet pierced the door just inches above my head. It sounded like a battlefield, then as if a switch had been flipped. Silence. I nearly jumped out of my skin when someone knocked on the door. "Hey, you still alive in there?" I knew that voice. I ripped open the door and rushed out. Dean embraced me tightly. "It's good to see you, Kay. I was worried. Are you alone?" I didn't have to answer. One look at my face was all Dean needed. "I'm sorry, Kay. Let's get you out of here." Another officer rushed in. "Yo, we got company, and a lot of it." Dean took charge. "All right, Tejano. I'm going to clear a path to the car with the M240. I want you to follow right behind me with Kylie." Tejano looked uncertain. "You sure you can walk while shooting that?" Dean shouldered the big gun. "Watch and see." Dean hit the lobby at a brisk pace. I was right behind him, with Tejano taking up the rear. We made it out of the building before the horde broke the tree line. Dean opened fire. I saw bodies, these ones even more disfigured than the last wave start to fall. Dean's pace slowed as he fired. Behind me, Tejano opened fire as well. Between both of them, they managed to keep the clones at bay until we reached the cruiser. Wasting no time, the three of us climbed into the car. Tejano punched the gas the instant he was inside. Dean hung out the window, hosing down our pursuers. The car hit a particularly large bump. Dean dropped his gun and likely would have fallen out of the car if I hadn't grabbed his legs. "Thanks, Kay," said Dean once back inside. Tejano drove the cruiser like it was a rally car. We reached Main Street in record time. Nothing followed us out of the woods. 2 more cruisers were on standby at the edge of town just to be safe. I got out of the car. Dean and Tejano did the same. I knew they had questions, but I didn't have any answers. Everyone's attention was diverted from me to the sound of the rotors overhead. A sleek-looking helicopter zipped past town at a questionably low altitude. Theano whistled in admiration. "Yo, Dean, was that what I think it was?" Dean nodded. "Looked like an AH-64 to me. Notice the lack of decals and tail number? That bad bitch was totally blacked out." I flinched at the distant sound of explosions. The booms were soon followed by something that sounded like chainsaw, but was much too loud to be one. Dean led me back to his place. "You can stay here as long as you want." I thanked him. His house was very male-centric. Plus, I wanted to sleep in my own bed. I told Dean as much. I just wanted to go home. He didn't like the idea, but drove me there anyways. "You be careful, okay? I'll be on patrol for the next few hours, but then I can spend the night if you want. Whatever you need to feel safe." He was sweet, but I needed my independence back. I needed to know I could move on from everything that happened and still be myself. Thanks, Dean. You're the best. And thanks again for saving me. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't arrived when you did. That was a lie. I know I would have died a painful death like Jordan had. Dean reluctantly left. He made sure I had my handgun close by and loaded. We compromised on keeping it chambered but leaving the hammer down. Hours ticked by. I hadn't moved from the chair I sat in after Dean left. My brain was a mess of memories, each one assaulting the others in an attempt to be in the front. Sometime after the sun had set, I heard a knock at the front door. Call it paranoia, but pulled the hammer on my pistol back. Slowly I made my way down the stairs and across the kitchen. I peeked through the curtains. 2 men in suits stood on my porch. Still wary, I unlocked the door and opened it. The lead man flashed a badge. "Good evening, ma'am. We have reason to believe this is the residence of Kylie, removed. May we come in?" I almost said yes. I don't know why, but I felt compelled to do as they asked. Coming to my senses, I shook my head and went to close the door. The nearest men blocked the door from closing. "Ma'am, I would reconsider. There are a few bodies that can be linked to you, or they can be handed discreetly. The choice is yours." I let them in. I offered them something to drink, but they both refused. They each flashed a badge too fast for me to see much of anything. "I'm Agent Plank, and this is my partner, Agent Stark. We understand you are under a certain amount of stress, but we must ask something of you." I felt like the use of such obvious fake names was a bit insulting, but I let Plank continue his speech. "The call center cannot be unmanned. You are the most experienced operator in this whole county. We need you to return to work." I started to laugh. It wasn't joyful or voluntary. The sheer absurdity of Plank's request was beyond belief. "No, I've done enough." The agents glanced at each other. Plank spoke again. "I'm afraid we were not asking. You have been promoted to manager. You have been provided 5 people. They will stay on until you can find the replacements." I shook my head vigorously. "You're not hearing me. I'm not going back. I quit. Throw me in jail for all I care. It will be better than entering that hellhole again." Agent Stark chuckled. "Ma'am, that place is far from hell. Listen carefully. We are going to take you back to the call center. You're going to behave and do your job. If you attempt to flee, we will find you and you will beg us to let you escape to hell." Plank took over. "It's pretty simple. You can come along and get a nice raise along with your promotion, or you can be difficult and kick the goad the entire way. The choice is yours. My shoulders slumped. Can I pack a bag? Plank nodded. Resigned to my fate, I went upstairs and packed an overnight bag. When I was done, the agents let me outside. 2 black Tahoes were parked in front of my house. Plank handed me a keyring with a Chevy fob on it. The back one is yours. Consider it a sign-on bonus. You'll find good behavior can be very rewarding. I followed the agents to the call center. When we pulled up, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It had been roughly 6 hours since the attack. The fence was brand new. It was taller and black. It now had coils of wire on the top. A heavy gate opened for us as we drove up. The building had been painted. I could smell the fresh lacquer curing as we walked up. The front doors had been replaced with what looked like blast doors. The inside of the lobby was clean, painted, and had all new appliances. Inside the call center was more of the same. Everything was new down to the toilets. I barely recognized the place. They had installed carpet and proper lighting, giving the room an almost comfortable feel. Except I knew why everything had been replaced. The walls were stained with horror so deep, no amount of paint could hide it all. I looked around. My map was gone. Years of data erased in a moment. I wondered if it had been destroyed or confiscated. Jordan's desk with all its secrets had been replaced as well. The place was sanitized of all its history. I instinctively flinched at the sound of the doors behind me opening. In walked what I assumed must be the 5 promised workers. Krista was first in. She wore a perfectly pressed gray suit and had her hair pulled into a painfully tied ponytail. She was curt and to the point with her introduction. Patrick had a little more personality. Luckily, he wasn't insulted when I referred to him as Patrick the first couple of times. Like Krista, he wore a suit, but his was mostly black. Stefan stood out the most due to his attire as well as his size. He strode into the room, narrowly avoiding knocking his head on the door frame. He wore blue jeans and a simple white t-shirt that looked as if it was painted onto his steroid-enhanced tribal tattoo-covered torso. Dale was by far the oldest. He had a quiet voice with a hint of an accent to it. He wore a suit as well, but no tie, and it fit loosely. Dale looked the most at ease of the 4. Plank looked at his watch with annoyance. Where is Agent Shang? No one knew. Plank and Stark looked ready to leave, but I had a feeling they couldn't until everything was squared away. 10 minutes later, we heard footsteps running through the lobby. A younger guy rushed into the room. He was slightly out of breath. Sorry, I'm late. GPS took me all over the place. I had to pull over and ask some random house for directions. Plank ignored his excuse. This is the final member of your team, Connor Shang, 22 years old, graduated bottom of his class, and clearly unable to follow written directions. Without another word, Plank turned and left. Stark handed me a folder. Everything you need is in there. Don't call unless it's an emergency, or else we'll make it one. I stuck my tongue out at Stark's back as he left the room. Too late I realized the 5 people still in the room likely reported to Plank and Stark or their mutual boss. I glanced at the thick stack of papers in the folder, then up to the waiting group of strangers. I cleared my throat. So, who knows what they've been signed up for?